Hey everybody, as advertised, live streaming on the Real Kyper at noon show. We got a terrific hour coming up, and we will take the whole hour. I will stretch it out to every last minute because we are jam-packed here in the show today. Of course, we're going to recap all the games, fantastic storylines going into this Thursday and heading towards a closeout games Friday, as many as 6 on tap on Friday. But before all of that, welcome. It's a Real Kyper show. You are in my home. You are in the studio that I built. I had some help along the way. I painted. I think I painted the desk. That counts for something. We are going to be, besides teeing up the game, I've got a terrific guest for you today, Alan May. A lot of you may have not seen Alan's work because he is doing NBC Sports in Washington. For the Caps, a top analyst. This guy's got a terrific story, much like mine. I think it mirrors it a little bit. We both found different ways to get to the NHL. I wasn't drafted, thus the cover of my memoir that's coming out October 20th. So listen, visit Simon Schuster and pre-order. It's called Undrafted, and that tells you my story on how to get to the NHL. But Alan May's, I hate to admit it, but it might be even more a better story in terms of how many hoops he had to go through, including the Atlantic Coast League before ending up as a Washington Capital and my teammate in the 89-90 season. But thanks for joining us. We're starting to see some regulars now, which I kind of like. I got to be honest with you. I told you that if you watch, put a comment down. Let me know what you're thinking. I would read them. And I know some of you said, nah, he doesn't read those. No, yeah, I do read them. I do. I know there's a Karate Canada guy out there that's loving the show. And I'm sitting there going, well, if I have a bad show, is he going to karate chop me? Is he really a karate guy? Let me know, okay? Because I sent a note back to you. But we read them. We appreciate them. If you happen to hit the like button, it really helps me out a lot, and Doug McLean. Now, Doug, okay, we got to pace him. I gave him the day off. Okay, I'm the director of hockey here at linemovement.com. I did give him the day off. He's not ruled unfit, although people will debate that. But Thursday's special to him. Doug, of course, is involved in the Big Brothers program in Summerside, PEI. And that's when an old guy comes and picks him up at his house and takes Doug to the park. Jill, are you laughing at that? I hope. I don't care if Doug likes that joke or not. I worry about Jill, his wife, whether or not she likes that or she's laughing, or I'm going to get it when I see her. But Doug, we've given him the day off, and that means that you've got me and Alan May, and like I said, you're gonna love him. But before we get to that, certainly let's be in a position to recap what's going on here. Two of the biggest storylines out there, no question about it. We're talking about the Montreal Canadiens and, of course, the Chicago Blackhawks. Nobody gave them any chance at all in this series. And let's be honest, you're out there as well. What chance did you give the Montreal Canadiens? Oh, yeah, if Carey Price stands on his head, if Carey Price is the $10 million goalie. Okay, that's easy. But there is so much more to this series than just Carey Price. And let's just start first and foremost that Pittsburgh's working hard. I'll give them that. But I'm not giving them any more than that because they are not working as hard as the Montreal Canadiens. And that, in a nutshell, is the first thing you notice. Now, you want to talk about defensive lapse? Pittsburgh Penguins? Yeah, I get it. And there's no question up until now, the fingers getting pointed at Matt Murray. And Matt Murray is a goalie that has won Stanley Cups. He's experienced. He's been there before. But he isn't even close right now to being the Matt Murray that we've seen over the past few years winning championships. I don't know what's going on there, but the confidence is lost. You want to talk about a game-winning goal where Jeff Petrie, terrific, 2 games, 2 game-winning goals, full marks to Jeff Petrie. But even if you're Ovechkin, that goal should never go in 3 or 4 feet off the goal line at that angle. Matt Murray is 6'4", and he's down. And what we call is what the reverse H is that what they call it now for goalies when they go down on one leg down and then they leave all of this up top? Why? Why are you 6'4" and you go down and you expose a short side like that? I don't get it. I don't know who invented this move, but he should never be allowed in a rink ever again. That goal should never go in. And if you want to sit there and talk about potential game-changing moments in this series, that one's no bigger. Now, the question is, if you're in a situation that Sullivan's now, what do? Well, you got to go to Jari. You have to go to Jari. There's just no way that you're going to be in a position now to put Matt Murray in. And I've been on the bench. I know what it's like when you've got a goalie that you've lost confidence in. This would be our bench when we know our goalie's no good. Is the puck out yet? Is it out? Yeah, tell me when it's out of our zone. Okay, it's out. All right, now I can start watching again. Not a good feeling. Not a good feeling. But let's give Montreal full marks outside of Carey Price. When we talk about the big three on defense, I think we've mentioned Seth Jones, David Savard, Werenski in Columbus. We can go to Minnesota. We can go to Suter, Spurgeon, Dumba. We can go to Nashville and Roman Josi, right? Ekholm, Ellis. Okay, who has big three on the Montreal Canadiens of Weber, Petrie, and Ben Sherratt? And they have been as big as anybody out there. They have been terrific. They've kept it simple. We had Shea Weber with 3 points. 3 points last night. Now, listen, I love Shea Weber. We know what a Hall of Famer he's been. We know the gold medals. We know the work in Nashville over his career. But Shea Weber is playing on a bad leg that he'll have the rest of his career, the ankle surgery, and he's in his mid-30s. And he has been lights out for the Montreal Canadiens. And then you go to Ben Sherratt. Ben Sherratt was kind of lost in Winnipeg. Well, how can you not be? Morrissey, Bufflin last year, Trouba before he got moved. Like, they had a very solid blue line. And now Ben Sherratt is quietly turned himself into something pretty special for the Montreal Canadiens. Now we look at the Pittsburgh Penguins and we look at them and we go, okay, did we give them too much credit here? Did we still look at a team that said it had Crosby and Malkin, and it's been quiet? 2 quiet assists last night for each of them. Malkin, no goals. And Sid does not have the room that he probably has had in the past. That's how good Montreal has been. But now you're looking for secondary scoring. Jake Gensel, nothing but an empty net goal. Rust, who's been a good player for them over the years, there's nothing there. And in fact, if you look at that third line now, and if you've looked at the history of the Pittsburgh Penguins with those cups, you saw guys like Nick Bonino and Matt Cullen. And now you're sitting there going, where is that? There is no third line presence for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Zero. Now you look at even a guy like Phil Kessel, where he had such a good fit in Pittsburgh. And we talked about this when he left Toronto. We talked about Kessel being in a position of not being the guy like he had to be in Toronto. He's not a centerpiece person, okay? You build around players like Crosby, McDavid, Jonathan Taves, but you don't build around a Phil Kessel. You let Phil just be Phil. And that is all of a sudden become a bit of an issue on secondary. Who's going to get it going for the Pittsburgh Penguins? So what a storyline that's been. But I really have to go to Matt Murray. You got to go back to Matt Murray. If you look at Pittsburgh's regular season, when they've scored 3 or more goals this season. Their record's 35-2-2. 35-2-2 when they've scored 3 or more goals. How many goals did they have last night? And they lost. Okay? That's what it comes down to. All right. Let's move on to now the other team that came back from a deficit, the Chicago Blackhawks. Once again, who had Chicago to win this series? And nobody. And give Jeremy Colleton a huge, thumbs up for sure in this one. He had the last change. He took full advantage of it. How many games now would you say that Edmonton's lost when McDavid and Draisaitl both score? Not many. That's money. It's usually a given. Those guys are on the score sheet. They're getting it going. You're going to win the hockey game. Not on Chicago's watch last night. And much like Pittsburgh, spending too much time in their own zone. And you look at the goal on the wraparound that ended up getting Chicago back into it. I think it went from Nurse to Bear to Riley Sheahan. Now watch the bounce that it gets off the boards. Now you want to talk about little things that matter in the playoffs? Go watch that goal again, okay? And watch Riley Sheahan take the puck off the boards, and it goes straight into the most dangerous area, and that's the middle of the ice. And then it goes to Carpenter, automatic back to the point, D to D, shot, deflection, Matt Highmore, his first postseason goal. What a goal. Fourth line coming up huge for Chicago. That's mistake number 1 in your own zone. Okay. And listen, I was a winger. Okay. You know how many pucks we take on a daily basis on the ring around? Thousands upon thousands for that one moment that it's key in a game that you don't get the bounce off the boards. You eat it or you let it go, but you do not carom the puck in the middle of the ice. And that's where it kind of slipped for Edmonton. And from then, a minute and 20 left. You got a key face-off. Okay. Of course, Chicago with the last change. They get their matchup. And then complete disaster on the coverage. And it's not so much that Draisaitl lost the face-off. Yes, I wouldn't be happy if I'm Draisaitl to look at the score sheet and see that I've lost more face-offs than I won. That has to be corrected. But you watch the domino effect of losing the face-off and what it did to the Edmonton Oilers. One mistake after another. Nurse is on the wall. I don't like him on the wall this late in the game. When Taves won the draw, for whatever reason, Nurse decides to go pressure up the ice. So by the time the puck is back to the point, man, you had 3 guys. You had Draisaitl, you had Nugent-Hopkins, and Nurse at the top of the circle. Nugent-Hopkins, I'm okay with. If it goes D to D, at least I'm going to force the shot, which is fine. But the other 2 guys are caught in no man's land. And then you see Ethan Bear in front of the net, and he's got Saad, and he's got Taves. Now pick your poison. I'm going to go to Saad. Oh, wait a second. Oh, no. That puck's going short side. It's going towards Taves. I'm going to go get Taves. So instead of being on a man, he's caught in the middle, and he needs to now reach with his stick and redirect it. Taves gets credited for the goal. Maybe it bounced off his leg. Maybe it didn't. Who cares? There's your game-winning goal. This is the stuff that drove Todd McClellan crazy, and I guarantee you this is the stuff that's driving now Tippett squirrely. This has to be corrected. or else we will see a bit of an upset here. Maybe two of them as early as Friday. So we got games coming up. Those are the two key games that I wanted to touch on. But right now, I want to take you all to an interview that I just did earlier. Alan May, of course, is a key commentator for the Washington Capitals. He's getting ready for an afternoon game. Of course, they're on tap in their round robin. But before he put the work into that, he did a terrific job putting the work in for us here on the Real Kyper at noon. Please enjoy. All right, full disclosure here, one of the best color commentators for the Washington Capitals, Alan May. Not only do we know him telling the great stories out of Washington for the Capitals, but a former teammate of mine when I first broke into the National Hockey League. You know, Alan, I got a chance to write a book this year for Simon & Schuster. If you want to pre-order it, please visit the website. It's called Undrafted. Now, when I look at your stats, Alan, I see a guy that's pretty similar to me. We're roughly around 400 games, 80, 90 points, 1,200, 1,300 penalty minutes. And I'm sitting there going, you could write a book like mine. My title is Undrafted. And it's basically, Alan, a story about different ways to get to the NHL. But I got to say, in all honesty, I think your story getting to the NHL is a little bit more compelling even than mine.
Well, you know what? I think, Nick, all the stories are great for every guy that was undrafted that made it. And it was so much different back when we were kids, you know, trying to get to pro hockey. There were leagues were scarier. There were, you know, big ugly guys all over the place trying to rip your head off, and it was just a matter of perseverance. And you know, you're a lucky guy, and I'm a lucky guy because there are players that were much better than us. But you know, there was a person somewhere that took a liking to us, and that's why we made certain hockey teams. But you know, my road was I love telling my story. I love being able to tell the story. I've always wanted to put a book together, not just of me, but of all of the guys, all of us who were undrafted. And, you know, some guys only got to play, you know, a handful of games, and that's all we ever wanted. We wanted to get that one game. And then you get that one, you want two, you want 100, you want 200, 300, and you keep going on and on. So there's been a lot of good stories of guys that didn't get drafted. But, you know, you had a phenomenal junior career. And it's bizarre that you were undrafted. And I find it bizarre that I was undrafted. But I think, you know, hiding in the little town in Saskatchewan, not that big of a guy when I was 17 years old, 18, 19, 20. And, you know, I played in the NHL my first year at about 170 pounds. So, you know, there's luck involved. And you know, I wouldn't change my path. I wouldn't change the road I took at all.
And I even, if you dig down even deeper, Alan, I scored 62 goals in my third year at junior. Now, you didn't score big numbers in the CHL, but you did have a 50-goal season in junior and over 400 penalty minutes. I scored 62. I think I had 100, and I thought that was too much. And I was accused of having too many penalty minutes back then with Bert Templeton. You had 400 penalty minutes and scored a 50-goal season. How did you do that?
Well, you just play with a chip on your shoulder every night. And I was mad I didn't have a college scholarship. So I made every guy that I thought was getting a scholarship, or, you know, guys that were taller than me, that were heavier than me, they were a target for me. So my coach would wind me up. You know, you go as hard as you could all game. And then, you know, I picked my poison near the end of the game, who I hated the most. And, you know, it was just a different time back then. And, you know, I played every game kind of angry when I was younger. I learned how to control that. And, you know, when I was first in the minor leagues, there was a lot of uncontrollable. But, you know, I was always juiced to score goals every year. I played defense at the start of junior, but I was always, you know, crease crashing and in the other corners all the time. And I think just for the hyperactivity of my game back then, playing forward was better for me. And obviously it was, because I played, you know, all 13 years of pro as a forward. I only had about a handful of shifts. I actually had one NHL game as a defenseman. And, you know, that one year in Washington, we had everyone injured all the time. But, you know, it's forward was my calling, and it didn't matter if it's left wing, right wing, center. I just wanted to get on the ice on any line.
Alan, what junior league was that?
Saskatchewan Junior League.
Saskatchewan Junior League.
Yeah, that's where all the big old farm boys play out
Yeah,
west.
no doubt about that. When I signed a professional contract with the Philadelphia Flyers, I signed a two-way deal, and we all know what that means. That you make the NHL, you get X amount of dollars, and if you don't, and you go to the American Hockey League, you get X amount of dollars. There was a time when they were contemplating sending me to the East Coast League, and I said, no, 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 I'm not going to the coast. Okay. The coast, when we played, was like, that's where you go to either end your career or never start your career. But it was not in my vocabulary. I ended up going back to junior for an overage year. Yet the coast was such an important part of your path to get to the NHL. Are you the only player to ever come out of the coast and play in the NHL, by the way?
No. There's been a lot of players after me, and I think in the hundreds now, to tell you the truth.
But back then, Alan, it didn't happen.
I was the first, and you know what? It was a throwaway league, and it was guys. When I first got there, the accommodations that that would be the best part of a book, was telling the motels we stayed in, how bad the buses were. But you know what? I was recruited to play in the IHL by a guy named Rick Dudley, who we all know.
Yeah.
And little did I know, when I got to the training camp in Flint, Michigan, there was like 120 guys to make this roster that had 3 NHL teams. Back when teams had unlimited rosters, they had about 160 contracts total that they ended up dealing with from the 3 teams. The Rangers used to sign in the hundreds. They used to have 100+ contracts at a time, and this was one of their teams. So I went through that training camp. To me, I was the best player. I had the most goals in training camp. I kicked ass 13 times, and I had a really. And they said, we can't afford to pay you. We're just getting the NHL players. Send all these kids there. So they said, why don't you go play down in the Carolinas? It's right at the beach, and they did a pretty good job of selling me. So they put me on a plane. They flew me down. They said, 3 weeks, we'll bring you back. We'll get a bunch of these guys bought out, and we'll find a situation for you. So I went down. It was only 3.5 hours away from the beach. It wasn't next to the beach. And it was only a 5-team league. And I didn't at the time, not really knowing if there's a North Carolina, East, a West, a South. But I played in Winston-Salem. Torts coached in Virginia. And, that league only had, what the key to it for me, Nick, that how I ended up making it, was that the key to the league was 9 forwards, 4D, and 2 goalies was the roster. There was no taxi squad.
Wow.
They didn't pay your housing. And you talk about that first 2-way salary you had. Well, I had a 1-way salary in that league. It was about a 24-hour contract of $250 a week, $35 a win. And we didn't win a whole lot. But you know what? I always had money, hung out at college bars, chased college girls. And we had a blast. And maybe the most fun I ever had, because the bus rides were hellacious, just the accommodation. You have guys come from the University of Minnesota, Michigan. We had guys from the New England schools. It was absolutely hilarious, the conversations on the bus rides.
And I would think that 99.9% of the guys never envisioned themselves making it to the NHL down there. So they are having a good time. It's a great experience, partying as you just mentioned. But I know, and knowing your personality, knowing your commitment, you knew even back then you were going to play in the NHL.
You know what? Very delusional. But you know what? If you're going to want anything in life, you have to get after it. You have to go for it every single day. And I never quit thinking about playing in the NHL. And I was not panic mode, but there was a desperation somewhat every day that every shift had to be a good shift. And, down in a league like that, it was all about effort, because coaching was horrendous, other than John Tortorella's team. Our coaches were absolutely, I got to be nice. They may watch this, but they weren't that good. And, just chase the puck, do whatever. And you could run all over the ice, get your hits. I had 50-some fights that season. I scored 20-some goals. I had a blast, though. And, the fans take to players like that, especially down south. They loved physical players. So it got me cranked up even more to play every game. So I was high octane. At the end of that year, I got called up by another coach, got me called up when our season was over, to the American Hockey League. And in 4 games, I had 3 NHL 2-way offers from 1 fight and 1 game in Rochester, New York, against Buffalo's farm team. And after that, man, things just started to happen that were absolutely incredible. It seemed like on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, before we dive into our first year together with the Washington Capitals, uh, I heard a story about yourself and Mike Milbury, who was your coach at the time in the American Hockey League. And I've never heard of this in my life, where a head coach tells you you're playing too well, knock it off. Share that story with us.
Well, we'd been on a road trip, and it was near the end of the season, near the trade deadline. And he said, "Hey, you need to slow it down. Edmonton's got a scout following us right now, and you're playing too well. You're scoring, you're fighting, and they're going to have the pick in this trade. It's a big trade. They're going to have the pick of any guy in the team." And I'm thinking, I was in the coast last year. I grew up as a season ticket holder. My dad had season ticket holder from day one with the Oilers. And I thought, they're way too good. I skate with some of those guys in the summer. It's amazing. I'm a Boston Bruin, a Buffalo Sabre, a tiny rink guy. I'm not this, fast ice Edmonton type of guy. And, the guy that was following us was Ace Bailey, and Ace used to like to tip him back. And he's also a good friend of Mike Milbury. So he was telling Mike, there's something going on. And obviously Mike was the coach GM of the American Hockey League team at that time. Well, when the trade deadline happened, all of a sudden, my door at about 20 minutes after 3 just starts getting pounded on. And it's Milbury. And he comes flying in my room. "You son of a bitch. You got traded. I can't believe I told you to knock it off. You never listened to me." And he was so pissed off at me. And he went on and on and on. And meanwhile, you're in shock. Here I am. I've got an NHL contract, which was, absolutely, your goal was to get to the American Hockey League, then to get to the NHL. And then to get traded to the Oilers, who've been winning Stanley Cups year after year. So I was in absolute shock. And, the best part of this story, though, Nick, is that when I got on the phone with Glenn Sather, this is the beauty. When I got on the phone with Glenn Sather, he's going, "Okay, Al, we're just making your accommodations to get here to Edmonton to come up and play for the Oilers." And he goes, "What are you, 6'4" or 6'5"? And I go, "I'm just over 6'1". I'm 6'2" on a really bad hair day. And I had a lot of hair back then. And he goes, "What do you weigh? 230, 240? I go, "I'm about 165 pounds right now." And he goes, "No, seriously." I go, "Glenn, dead serious. 6'1.5" on, if I'm lucky, the back is straight and I'm upright. And I've said, I'm 165 pounds, 165 to 175. And he goes, "Well, hey, we're having trouble with your immigration." I go, "Glenn, I'm from Edmonton." And so I get sent down to Nova Scotia. Well, within a week, we're on a road trip and through the American teams, and we pick up this scout. Ronnie Lowe's our head coach. We pick up this scout in the Boston area, and it's Ace Bailey. And he walks back. He goes, "Where's me?" He walks back. He goes, "Well, you play like you're 6'4", 240. And so he and I always had the running joke is that, you played like you're 6'4", 240. But, by the time I saw Glenn, he just looked at me and, he obviously didn't trade. They thought they were getting a monster because I led the American Hockey League in penalties that year. I think I finished with 411 penalty minutes that season.
Did someone explain to Glenn Sather that back then in our day, they had fact books with height, weight, even a picture? Could have
what? I don't think
easily opened up one of those.
I don't think the general managers counted on that stuff back then. I think it was just on their pro scouts, and I'm not sure how many pro scouts they really had back then. Glenn Sather and Ace Bailey go back a long, long way, from their playing careers, playing together.
Yeah.
So, the old buddy system of who you hired. And I was happy I get to have Ace Bailey in my life because I ended up going on with he and his family and a group of hockey guys every year on a vacation. One of the funniest guys ever. But, Slats, and the other thing, Nick, is that Slats had never gone to a minor league game. The very first American Hockey League game that he ever saw, I played in Rochester, New York, the following December, and he called me up after watching me play in that game. So it's, it worked out well because I think I would have been one and done with the Oilers, and the time in the minors, improving my skating. So, I always look at everything as a positive. I'm a 95% guy. I'm looking at all the good. And I'm not one of those 5% people that sees the sky is falling every day.
Well, and we lost a good one in Ace during 9/11, unfortunately, but everybody loved him, and it's great to hear your connection to Ace Bailey. Now, you grew up an Edmonton Oiler fan. That must have been a thrill to even be around this organization with the likes of Gretzky and Messier.
Well, you know what? One of the greatest things is that, growing up there, we used to go to the games in the WHA. And if my dad wasn't home, my uncle would take me if I didn't have a game or a practice. And so never really missed a game. And then, the day that they acquired Gretz in the WHA, my dad went and bought 13 season tickets for us and the extended family. He got in line and he said, Al, we're going to play in the NHL. We just got the best player in the world ever. And I'm like, Dad, how do you know that? He's like 16 years old. He's the best player that's ever lived. We got him. So he got good insider information.
Yeah,
and
no
we went to
kidding.
every single game. I was there the game that he signed his lifetime contract on his 18th birthday, all the different things that happened. So to me, to be able to, to go in that dressing room and skate with those guys. And I did end up with the team, we called it the Lobsters, not the Black Aces, when you got called up from Halifax. And to be around the team and how cool everyone was. And Gretz was the first guy waiting when I got to the dressing room to talk to me when I got called up. And just to see Mess in person and, inside the room. And then to be, every day participate in practice, the morning skates. He had to do some extra skating with the guys before and after. But, I was always on call as the next right winger. And I always look at the right wing roster there. And it would have been, at first you got Yari Curry, never going to beat that guy out of a spot. Then you got Glenn Anderson, never going to beat that guy out of a spot. Then you got Craig Simpson, a 50-goal scorer, never going to beat that guy out of a spot. And then there's this monster named Marty McSorley or Kevin McClellan, who they've been winning Stanley Cups with. So, it would have been a tough road to make that team eventually, especially back then. I was just a right wing. But to win that Stanley Cup was amazing with those guys, to be a part of it. Yeah.
Not one of them could step on a puck during practice and, twist a knee or something. I mean, that's what it really took to crack that
the
lineup.
first practice with those guys was something else. So, like, it was in Boston, we were up and down stops and starts, straight lines.
Flow.
These guys would regroup 6 times. And
flow.
Yeah,
drills.
it just flow. And there was no stops and starts in practice. It was, if you went all the way down and back, it was tight turns. There was no stopping with slats. So it helped my skating, and it helped me get to the NHL by being a part of that.
And now we go into our first year, 89-90. And did you sign as a free agent or
no? They traded for me. I get traded to LA. I wouldn't sign. I had probably the best contract in the American Hockey League for 2 years. I gambled on myself, and I was the highest.
So you got
player.
paid per game?
I signed a couple of different contracts. I had all bonus-laden contracts. I was just thinking about playing in the American Hockey League the first year, and then with the Caps, I signed a contract when I got traded there. There was offers on the table. I go, I'll take that one. It pays me a lot in the American Hockey League. My salary in the NHL, my base was the same as it was in the American Hockey League. Then I got paid every game, and then I got bonuses at 20, 40, 60, 80 when we had 80-game seasons. So I ended up making close to, I made 4 times what my base salary was.
Wow.
And I got suspended a game. I still got paid for it because of the way I had my contract bonus structured. And 2 games of injuries, I set my contract up. I negotiated my contract. I got
You
paid
did the
for
contract yourself?
I did it myself. And so it was just two. I get paid for every single game that year. I got every single bonus. So I got $1,000 a game. So think of that. There's 80,000 there. My base was 50, and then I got the big bonuses at 20, 40, 60, and 80. So it worked out well. It worked out very, very, very well.
Why didn't I hire you to do my contracts? So when you got to Washington,
well, go ahead.
I was going to say, so when you got to Washington, you were on a one-way contract right off the bat?
No, I was. Yeah, it was a different structure. So it was the American League base. So it was probably an illegal contract, but Poyle used to do some of those, and that's how I ended up. My eventual agent, Ronnie Seltzer, he goes, "Oh, you don't have one of those contracts, do you?" I said, he knew I had that contract, but so I was on that contract. But I went to Washington after speaking with them when they traded for me. I was one of the best players in the American Hockey League in the playoffs the year before. And when I get traded to LA, played New Haven, we lost in the finals, and I had a phenomenal playoffs. And I knew I was ready to be an NHL player. I had zero doubt in my mind at that time where the skating was, the toughness, the tenacity, all of that. So when I got to Washington, we went to Sweden and Russia for training camp. I was the leading scorer. You didn't have to fight over there, but they were terrified, and I was going 100 miles an hour, and I was already in good shape. Because you remember when we first got to pro, guys weren't in shape. And that was, that was my thing, was working out. I know that was your thing, and showing up and being ready to go. First game, 100%, no matter what it was. First skate, training camp, 100%.
So you guys are in Russia that year. I'm with the Philadelphia Flyers, and I think that I'm also going to play my first NHL game for the Flyers. And I got claimed off of waivers to the Washington Capitals. I knew no one on the team when I walked in the door, with the exception of Kevin Hatcher, who I played 2 years of junior hockey with in North Bay, and everybody else meeting for the first time, including you, Alan. And right away, I, I I I thought that you had been in the league for like 4 or 5 years, and it was just the way you conducted yourself, the way you carried yourself, and the way you spoke. And watching you in those first few weeks take on every comer, and it didn't matter. And I'm Glenn Sather's right. I'm not watching a guy 6'4" and 240 pounds. And I saw you fight Ty Domi, Joey Kosher, Grimson, Baumgartner. It didn't matter to you. You were going to go there. And good on the Washington Capitals, because at the time, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but toughness was always an issue for the Caps. They got the shit knocked out of them time and time again by the Flyers. And you were going to put an end to that.
Well, you know what the big thing is, that every year that I play, I think I had 1,600 minutes. I guess 1,200 minutes the prior 3 seasons going into that season, and it was just part of my DNA to get involved. I grew up. My dad is 5'2". It's a small guy, but tough as they come, and it was always stand up, and you take shit from nobody. And when I played every game, I just had that mentality. It's like you stick up, and if you get your ass kicked, you get your ass kicked. But there weren't too many of those going around, and I wasn't hit that many times over the course of my pro career like other guys who like to trade punches. I like to duck and then counter punch. But with the Caps, I remember that previous playoffs, Hextall scored a goal against them, and I thought someone should have kicked his ass for scoring that goal. So when we went to Sweden and Russia, you'll love this one. I don't know how much you know this story, but our 2 reporters at the time, remember Dave Fay and Bob Fache?
Yeah.
They were on the Sweden-Russia trip, and I was tearing it up. Once again, it was the conditioning, and I was there to I was playing on line with Courtnall and Dale Hunter all through training camp and getting really good ice time, penalty kill, power play, you name it. And so we came back, and the reporters go, "Hey, May, they didn't bring you here to dance," is what Brian Murray said, to be a ballerina. And I said, "Don't worry, guys, 3 and out next game." "What's that?" I said, "Come and see me after the first period." So the very first period, my first fight is Jeff Chikrin, and then I play 2 seconds my next shift. I go after Jay Wells, and then I fought Terry Karkner. I have 3 wins, 6'6", 6'5", 6'4". Yeah. I'm in the dressing room during the first period of a preseason game, drinking a beer, and those 2 guys came down. Remember that spiral staircase in the forum, in the Spectrum? They came down and they go, 3 and out, kid. That's pretty good. What are you going to do tomorrow? I said, tomorrow I'm the invisible man. These guys will not come near me. They go, how do you know that? I said, I've been doing it for quite a while. And the next day we played in Baltimore, same 2 teams. No one came near me. It was awesome. So, right from then, and the next day they said, hey, get a place to stay. You're here for the year. So, but it was, you just have to have that mentality going into every game that, I just believe that you go in every game to win. You go in every fight to win. Any battle you have, you're going in there, and that's how we had that. And I think that's why our team and our line, you, me, Rob Murray, and Timmy Berglund, the guys that played on our line, that's why we're successful that year, is because we didn't take a backseat to anybody, and we stood up. And I used to joke around in the dressing room all the time with Johnny, all of you guys, and say, hey, we'll show you old guys how to win a series. Well, and they get pissed off at it, but you know what? You had to have a different mentality.
And watching you early in my career go through it, and I'm sitting there going, there has to be a support system here. And not that I was in your weight class, not that I challenged guys that you did, but it's a lot easier to go out there and have that wolf pack mentality as a team when we see you out there every night going toe to toe with these guys. And how many extra goals did you think you got Dino Ciccarelli that year?
Well, I don't think I ever got him an extra goal, but you know what? Our team, though, when we look at it, Nicky, that we had Scotty Stevens was the guy. He had the penalty minute record prior to me breaking it in a single season. And then we had Shekat. He had 3. So he's number 2 in a single season all time. We had you. And so we had all these numbers. So it wasn't just one guy, and it was the pack mentality. And Hunts used to always say, Al, right off the bat, he goes, if the white flag goes up, come and take care of business. I said, you're going to have to white flag a few guys for me, because there's a couple guys whose asses I want to kick. So you start the scrum, I'll just come and grab him, and I'll shame him into a fight. So we had that. And then She-Cat and I, he goes, how do you do all this? And then we would fight at our house all the time. We'd practice fighting. Just, he had a different way. And I said, you should throw body shots. And then the same thing. So we'd get involved in those scrums all the time, and we'd pick who we wanted to pull out of them. And it was a lot easier to go against Philadelphia. And we dominated the Flyers that year. We beat them opening night. And, Dave Brown, they made a huge mistake in letting Dave Brown go, because I really think that changed the face of their franchise at that
Brownie
time.
Was scary.
Yeah. And we beat those guys up. Yeah. Yeah. We beat that team up for 3-4 years, and then they brought Brownie back, and they got tough again. So it was a lot different, but you have to have all of us. It was a group thing, Nick, and that's why we were successful at the start of that. And then we lost Scotty, and it was a completely different attitude and mindset.
Albie, the craziest game I ever played in was a Flyer-Washington game, I think at 91. I think we had the 5th most penalty minutes in history at the time, and I don't know where that stands today, but all because Dale Hunter elbowed Gord Murphy behind the net. And I just remember going, oh boy, here we go. What do you remember out of that game?
Well, I remember he goes, Al, don't stay within 15 feet of me this entire shift. I swear to God, I go, why? He turned, and he had a knot on the side of his head. And he was one of those Hunts when he would get hit. He didn't get, I never got bruises. I get the odd black eye on, and I didn't cut, but Hunts would get these horrific, it was awful. It was nasty. What happened? So his Jof is sticking out about an extra inch from and he said that one of the Sutters, that Ron Sutter had butted him on a face-off. And I go, well, what are you going to do? He goes, anything. He goes, I'm losing respect. So he went out there, and no sooner did he go out, he does a flying elbow, which today would be a 100-game suspension.
Oh, and the season.
Or you know what? Or maybe in prison. He could be in prison.
If anyone has not seen it, I tell you to go to Google and just watch that game, Flyers Capitals brawl, and watch the elbow Dale Hunter throws on Gord Murphy, and you sit there and go to what you just said. They're cuffing him after the game, and they are escorting him out, and they're booking him.
Well, that just ended up every game after that was kind of a bloodbath. It was fun, because you look back. And if the fans, today's fan, a lot of the people that weren't alive back then, the kids that grew up in junior hockey and all that, there was no one sitting down in the Flyers Caps game back then.
Oh my god! And
you were just waiting. There was gasoline everywhere, and it was just the spark needed to be, just needed to light the fire.
I remember
it was awesome.
I remember looking up, and it was a dark building, the old Cap Center, but you could still see enough that you could see Flyer fans fighting the Cap fans. That's how goofy it was. So let's stay on Dale Hunter. So one of the things that I like to do, Alan, is I like to play with Doug McLean a game called Play the Percentages Chum. And I take that line from Dale Hunter, because every time I try to make an impossible pass through a seam the size of a needle, he'd go, what are you doing? You know what the percentages of that it's going to come to me? Play the percentages, chum. So I want to play the percentages, chum, with you. Okay.
All right.
I'm going to ask you a question, and your 3 choices on your percentages are 0, 50, or 100%. Okay.
I got it.
All right. You got another Hunt story for us at all? Because the other one I like telling him is, he likes taking us under his wing, right? He almost like a father figure, that guy that back then with our team, which was great. But the other one he always used to say is, hey, every once in a while, you got to get suspended. Keeps them guessing.
Well, that's what that Gord Murphy incident was all about. Well, I do have a story that he probably passed the statute of limitations right now. We once were paid personal appearances fees to go to a racetrack. And it was harness racing. And, he used to hang out at the Ponies and bet them all the time. And we were there with a couple NBA guys, a couple of Redskins at the time. There was no baseball team in DC. And they're going around the track, and he goes, this jockey comes by in the 2-horse. If he goes, Hunts, we're going to run up right at the about a minute left before a bet, and we're going to load up on his horse. So there we go. Guy goes by. We run up about a minute left to bet, put $100 each to win on this horse. So we got paid almost double of what we went to the track. So we got paid X to go to the track. We made a few thousand more from Hunt's knowing this guy. So his old, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, which he said every single day. So there we were at the racetrack and getting a lump of money. So it was just typical Hunt's. He was always up to
Why
something.
you? Why not me?
Pretty sure he cheated at cards.
Hey.
You know, all of those things. So, but very highly competitive guy.
When Hunt's gave me a tip on a horse, the teller would already give my ticket ripped up. That's how bad it was. Okay, so play the percentages chum with Alan May. Okay, over your career, from junior to the NHL, I counted 20 teams that you played on. 20 teams. What is the percentage that you could name all 20 teams? 0, 50%, or 100%?
100%.
Go.
Carolina Thunderbirds, Springfield Indians, Maine Mariners, Boston Bruins, Nova Scotia Oilers, Cape Breton Oilers, if we count that as a different one, New Haven Nighthawks, Washington Capitals, Edmonton Oilers, left them out, Dallas Stars. Where
halfway
we at?
there.
Is that 15?
No, I think we're at 10. We're at 10.
Okay, so Dallas Stars, Calgary Flames. I'm going in order to get all those NHL teams out of the way. Orlando Solar Bears, Detroit Vipers, Houston Aeros. What's that?
15.
So I didn't play. I don't think I played for 20 teams. And we should be good right there.
Maybe I'm going back to, did you start at Saskatchewan?
And
did you name that your...
those are teams I coached and owned. And so those that don't count. So
listen, I can't believe you got past the number of fights that you got into. I'm surprised that you got...
It's about counterpunching, man. I got it hit very few times. Duck and throw a punch.
All right. So it's funny because you ended your career and you coached for 2 different teams.
Well, I coached a couple teams. I got into the ownership groups with the team. So it was selling tickets, selling advertising, doing everything to make a buck. We always knew what we had, and our teams always made money. So it was just, I ran all the hockey side and then learned all the corporate and all the... It was fun. It was... Actually, I learned more on my first team that I owned than anything I've done the rest of my life combined.
Okay,
so
I'm going to throw this one at you because you just mentioned coaching. We all know you're a great analyst for NBC Sports in Washington for the Capitals. But what's the percentages that we might see you behind a bench one day with all your knowledge and your experience? 0%, 50%?
I'm going to say 0%. I'm old. I'm the same age as you pretty much. So, I know we don't look our age, and life's been good to us because we still work out like crazy and do, watch what we eat and the water we put in our body and the booze we put in is gluten-free. So it's television, it's media. They don't go and hire old guys. Couple teams have brought guys out of the booth. We'd have a better chance of being general managers, assistant general managers.
You look like you're 55, chum.
I'm 55. I am 55.
You look like you're 35. I was joking.
You better get your guys to edit that before we get this out there.
You see Joel Quenneville? He looks like he's 100.
And we played with that guy.
Making $6.5 million.
Yeah, and we played with that guy. But you know what? He came to us. He looked like he was 80. So, and he skated like he was 70. So it's, Tippy and those guys. I think you really got to do, live the path of coaching. You've got to be all in, and Tip earned his way there. Q earned his way there. So, they didn't come by these jobs by accident. They earned it.
Okay. Fighting is out of the game in less than 10 years. 0,
100%,
50, or 100%.
I'm just going 100 right off the bat.
Wow.
It's almost done. You know what? I have my first few years in Washington, and I know you had seasons, I have more fights in a single season than this team Washington gets in a full season, and the majority of teams. And we got like one of the number 1 villains here in the NHL in Tom Wilson. So fighting's almost done. the hysteria around it, with head injuries and not having the knowledge with where lawsuits are going, 100% it will be done. And it will not even be, you won't get a 5-minute major. It'll be worse than that, I think, as time goes on here. It'll be a 10-minute, maybe put your team shorthanded for 10 minutes. But they'll do something. They won't just flat out eliminate at the start. They'll penalize it so bad that you just can't take a chance of letting it happen.
Wow, it's interesting. You just didn't even hesitate at all on the 100%. So, okay, you brought up Tom Wilson. I'll go there. Chances of seeing more Tom Wilsons in the league, 0%, 50%, or 100%?
Well, more. So you just have to have one is more. So it's, he's so unique in that he is one of the fastest skaters on this team. He's flying by guys right now in this qualifier. He is, what he's done in his career, it's caught up to him. All of his training. He's incredibly intelligent. Everyone wants to have the next Tom Wilson. I think he's one of a kind. So I'll go 50% because, we didn't, there's never be, if you ask me, is there going to be another Gretzky? I say 0%. Yeah. That this can't happen anymore. But it's tough to replicate Tom because he's so unique in what he does. But at the same time, these guys, a lot of guys go into games, they're so scared of their shadows now. I could have only imagined the thought process a lot of today's players going back and with us, and we're going lefty, righty, throws with both. And they got 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 guys in some of these teams. And absolutely they'd be terrified.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If, like right now, Alan, if you were to start your career exactly the same way, you could have easily been a $5 million player like Tom Wilson. In today's era, your game in today's era would have been scary.
Well, the whole thing, it'd be search and destroy. But at the same time, the league they jumped the gun on a lot of the rule changes, and I think that's where all the injuries have come from. There's more head trauma, the high impact. There's the hits because you can't hook and hold and ride guys into the boards. Yeah. It's a lot different, but yeah,
Well, you're a great skater, and that's the game right now too. Yeah, if you can play tough and be a great skater, like you mentioned, Tom Wilson, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah, you look at it, he's a phenomenal player. And he's adapted to what today's game is because he was used so incorrectly, so poorly when he first got into the league. To bring in a kid that young and use him as a fourth line heavyweight role usually ends up in disaster off the ice as well. And he's a clean liver. He works his ass off, and he's going to be, if Ovi ever leaves here, which I think he might play till he's 52, Tom will be the next captain. He's got all those great attributes. But the game has changed so much. And I look back and how we played. It's evolution. It's evolved. Look how different it was from the guys, how those goaltenders were back in the, the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And the game's completely changed. You got 5 coaches on the bench. You got goaltending coach, 2, 3 goaltending coaches on a team. It's a lot different now. There's a lot more information involved.
Okay. It's like you're leading me into my questions. It's unbelievable because you just brought up Ovechkin. If not the greatest goal scorer in history, certainly in the top 0. I mean, I gotta think he is. When you consider how difficult it is to score in the league with the goaltending, the equipment, all of that, it's phenomenal. So play the percentages, chum. He breaks Gretzky's record. 0, 50, or 100% chance.
Well, if I don't say 100 and I say 0, everyone's gonna hate me. I wish there was something in there like a 10%.
I will never give Doug McLean another choice, but you give me a true percentage.
I think it's only, I'll go with Ovi's number. It's 8% chance because it is, we had this pandemic and it's cost him games. It cost him another 50-goal season. He would have had it in the next couple of games had the season gone on. Probably would have got it the next game that we had canceled against Columbus. Or whoever we were playing when it happened, with the lockdowns and those, but his level of condition. I just think it's too hard right now because he's played the game harder than any goal scorer that's ever played. Who has more hits than Ovi does in the course of their career, and the scores and the power forward the way he's played. So I don't think he will get it. I think it will just be too hard. And I've said this publicly before. He needs everything to go right It's just different. It's just so hard to. I think it's too hard for him to maintain the pace of 50, 60 goals every single season. He was on pace for 60 goals, before this ended. So, which is another feat. But the guys, the dedication to training, and he runs and does all these bizarre workouts now. It's incredible to see what he does to keep himself relevant and continue to be the best goal scorer in the game currently.
What are you saying? Mike Bossy and Jari Kurri never threw a body check?
Mike Bossy might be the best goal scorer that, had he been able to play longer, because you look what he did in his career. And when he
50
didn't
was
score,
nothing, right?
Yeah,
50.
Yeah, he scored 60 right off the bat, 50, 60 every season.
He was,
and then the year, his back was so bad, the year that he got 39 or whatever it is, he was upset and packed it in early. So it's a great shot, phenomenal player, but it's just completely different. The way Cam Neely was the closest thing to Ovi.
Let's stay on the Washington Capitals here. The percentage of getting to a conference final, 0, 50, or 100.
Oh, I like the way they look right now. Yeah, John Carlson's. If I knew that he was going to be playing, I would say 50%, 100%. But because I don't know what his status is right now, he should be the Norris Trophy winner this year. I would say 50% right now because of the John Carlson. What's going on around his
Carlson?
What's that?
What's your gut saying about his
my gut
availability?
says that he doesn't play any of the qualifying games and that he plays the first game of the playoffs when they actually get to the playoff rounds.
We're watching these teams now, and it's almost as we watch the qualifying best of 5 here, we're forgetting that the best teams are just sitting quietly along here, and I don't really put that much stock. I don't know about you, Alan. I don't put much stock in first seed, second seed, third, fourth seed. It's whether Washington is 1 or 4. Who wants to play them? Who wants to play the Boston Bruins?
Well, you look at what's going on right now, and it's the same. You don't have that desperation, and and I know, and Doug doesn't know because he never played a game in pro hockey. But when you get to when you get to playing that,
I'm going to remind him you said that, by the way. Yeah,
remember how excited we were in those first playoff games. To me, there's nothing like it. The adrenaline rush, and it's different. Even those qualifying games, if you lose a game, you're not lying in your bed in Toronto in the bubble. You're not lying in your bed worried about it. So what you're worried about is making sure that you're going to get a win the next game, and everything matters. Your career matters. It's every second. So the teams in the round robin, they're not the same. They're not playing the exact same passion, and it's not that they're not trying to. It's just not there because it's not a sudden death type of game. And what happens, and when they find out who they're playing, and it's going to be probably Pittsburgh or Carolina, I'd assume Pittsburgh, Carolina, Columbus in that range, then it'll be all systems go, 24 hours of thought of how you can beat that team to get to the next round. So I'm not putting a lot of stock in these round robin games right now.
Okay, let's put more stock in the qualifying series that we're watching. 2 underdogs against heavily favored teams. Chicago against Edmonton, Pittsburgh and Montreal. We see the underdog up 2-1 in the series. What is the percentages that we see an upset here to close it out? 0, 50, or 100?
Well, you got to go with 100 because it's one game elimination right now for Edmonton in their series.
So who's losing? Pitt or Edmonton? Who's going to lose this series?
I think Edmonton's going to lose this series because they don't have the skating that Chicago has, and they've got to be absolutely 100% committed to proper puck play, defensive play, and then let Draisaitl and McDavid get there, and then chip in with defensive style goals, opportunistic goals. And they don't see they're getting caught up in this game that Chicago wants to play. In Chicago, you look at that roster, every single forward has had super success offensively throughout their lifetime of hockey, youth hockey, junior, collegiate, European. And Edmonton's got a lot of Clydesdales on their team right now. And if you're a Clydesdale team, you got to play that way, and you got to play safer, closer to the vest. So I'm thinking Chicago knocks them off because they're running the gun and they're moving that puck, darting it up the ice. They've got so much finish on that squad, and it's not just the top line. It's all through those lines. Kubalik didn't get anywhere near enough fanfare this year for how great he is. The first time I saw him play, the guys in my broadcast thought I was crazy. I go, that guy's going to score 30. He's going to score 30.
Yeah.
And I love him. He had 8 shots the first time they played the Caps.
Wow.
And he was everywhere.
Yeah.
8 shots, I think a couple of goals. But you look at that roster, Dylan Strome, gifted offensive player. There's so many players that they have that have finished, and they're still young. And I look at that roster. So I'm looking at Chicago. It's a huge upset. Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, they're going to have to go through what Ovi went through here. The rest of the team's going to have to realize we have to do everything right, and we have to chip in. They can't score every one of our goals.
And we'll see what happens with Tyler Ennis, actually a pretty good player. He's made a heck of a comeback. He takes a big hit from Kirby Dach, and it did not
Another
look
great
good.
young player. Another great young player who's going to have a long career.
And you look, and Alan, it's a guy 6'4" versus a guy 5'9". I don't care what you want to say about the game. It's still a big man sport.
Size matters, man. And
says the guy who Glenn Sather thought was too small to play on his team.
Well, you know, Alan, how did St. Louis Blues win the playoffs last year? They were so big
and heavy,
and you could not get to the net. And once they find their game, which they're just winding up right now, their game is all about keeping it hard. You cannot get to the middle of the ice with them. And they've got a lot of gifted goal scorers up there, but they know what the game is. Block out for their goaltenders.
How is your pace of play for watching all these games every day? It's different for you. I'm a true 54-year-old. As I said earlier, you're 55 going on 35. So I'm sure you've got tons of energy here. You're just getting started.
Oh, I love it. I love what we're doing. We went all these months without anything. You know, I'm tired of watching replays in any sport. And you think of some of the things they have on ESPN and all these different channels. NBC, they got car shows on our sports network all the time. You know, 5 and 6 hockey games a day. I love it. And to go through everything. And I love what the NHL's done in every facet. And I've seen you and Doug and heard you speak about, you know, how great the venues are and what they've done inside the bubble. I know that right now everyone's saying, oh, how are these guys going to do it? I guarantee the teams that go to the finals and the conference finals are going to have more fun than they've ever had. The things that are going on, the practical jokes, when it's all said and done, it's going to be hilarious, all the things that have happened. I can only imagine how many guys have had their rooms broken into and rearranged and all their furniture stolen and their you know, all their clothes, whatever. And you know, the practical jokes, all that. But everything
if we were in it together, you would have led the way. I know you.
Well, it just would have been fun. Because you'd go a little bit stir crazy. But Nick, I've got to ask you this. We've been lucky enough in our TV, you know, we work with other hockey guys, but in the real world, you don't laugh as much as you do when you're in these, you know, these fraternities of being pro athletes. And especially I look at hockey, the belly laughs that we had, all the stupidity every day. We have a teammate that walks around naked 100% of the time, exercises.
Do you remember
naked.
the time Ali Frady walked into our dressing room with that big leather coat and he takes it off and he's butt naked? I'm like, I don't even know if you can fine a guy for not wearing a suit when you're naked. And he comes in on his Harley and he's like, he's frozen.
Hey, everything he did was funny, and the amount of cigarettes that he smoked. He's the fastest skater, the hardest shooter, the funniest guy. And I every day I walk in and he's on the arm peddler, whatever the name for that.
And he had arms bigger than Hulk Hogan.
He had big giant pecs. He actually looked like Hulk Hogan. And then, you know, he'd have a cigarette in his mouth. He'd have his coffee up top. He'd have a cigarette on his mouth, riding a bike. It was absolutely hilarious every day. And blowing smoke rings at the coaches about, you know, not supposed to be smoking in the dressing room. It was just too funny all the time.
Crazy, that you still remember those stories more than what you could remember in the third period somewhere. It's It's
Well, that's
phenomenal.
when you play a lot of games, all those other parts just blend in. But when
Yeah.
if you played 5 games, you'd remember every shift. But all of these things on a day-to-day basis, and even looking at the things, the laughter during the losing streaks, and stupid things that go on, and
Well,
arguments with coaches that become everyone talks about, and then you have goofballs like Bill Holder and Ivan Corvo on your team that tell the same stories every day, and every day they get funnier and funnier. So there's just a lot of great. That's the part you miss the most, is all the incredible laughter that you
oh
have.
my
And I
gosh.
remember you and I one time, Doug McClain of all guys, we were in LA. I was out with we were both out with injuries, I believe. And it was our rookie year, and we're in the Forum Club, and we sat with Mary Hart that game, and we're in the Forum Club after the game. And I remember we had rented a convertible. And Doug comes in there, get on the bus. The guys played really bad that night. We didn't play, and we're double fisting it. And I go, we got a car. And they were so mad at us, but it's just all of those.
I will say this, Mayday, you were the best guy on the road, because you could tell us where we're going after in LA. I was so excited to play my first NHL game in LA. LA, Hollywood, Tinseltown, movie stars, all of it, and this Forum Club that was the place to be. When we got our NHL schedules out, it's not when the home game is. It's not going to Montreal and playing in the Forum. It's LA Forum, not Montreal Forum. It was LA. And you were the best. You knew all the spots, where to hit, how to rent a convertible. Now, did Bob Gainey accuse you of being a party guy? Is that true?
Well, when I got traded to the Stars, Bob had called me. He goes, "Hey, I heard you want to play here." And David Poile had asked me where I wanted to play, and I should have asked who wants me, and it wasn't. It was all kind of a shock. And I heard that later found out Toronto, Montreal both wanted me. They both had really good teams that I would like to have played on, and coaches that I liked, and coaches with fire. And so I get traded to Dallas, but when I get traded there, Bob calls. He goes, "So do you want to play here?" And I said, "Yes, I do." He goes, "Well, I heard you're a party guy." I go, "No, no, 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 no." I go, "I'm the guy that organizes the parties and the dinners and the golf outings, and whether it's a bowling alley or it's happy hour, I'm that guy." He goes, "Well, we need that kind of guy on our team." He goes, "We got this new city. We need to keep the guys together." So he goes, "Give me 20 minutes. I'll make a trade, get rid of a guy." And calls me back 20 minutes later. Deal is done. And I talked to David Poile in the meantime. And then that night, back when you got traded, you didn't wait 2 or 3 or 4 days. I was on a plane at about 8 o'clock, land in Dallas around 10, 11 o'clock, and Bob Gainey's with Doug Armstrong picking me up and, take me to my new place. They got a car for me. It was incredible. And then about a week later, we have a happy hour in Florida. We have a golf tournament. They traded for like 7 or 8 guys that weekend. The team was pretty good, but probably should have made all these trades. And we're at a golf course in Miami, and he tells all the guys, he goes, "We're golfing today." And then he goes, "All right, happy hour, 5 o'clock, make 4 o'clock." And the guys are what? So I showed up at 4 o'clock, and Bob's waiting for me bright and early. I walk in. I don't know what to expect, why I'm going in there. I just had a really good game in Madison Square Garden the game before, a really good road trip. And I walk in, and he just pushes a big old Grolsch beer to me and puts a cigarette in my mouth and lights it. And I'm like, so the guy's coming, I'm having a cigarette and I'm drinking beer. And by the time they get there, I'm going, "Help, help, help." And I get like 6 of these nasty beers, and I'm smoking these green cigarettes with the GM coach. And the whole conversation is about, but we need to make sure this team is bring together, get them closer. And they didn't need my help because they were having too much fun already. And it was way too much fun playing on that team. Probably not good for a guy like me. I had too much fun there.
I'm so pissed off listening to you right now, because you had inside information as a player, for God's sakes. I knew nothing when I was going to get traded, and you just sit there and wait for a call. You had it all figured out, and you were correct me if I'm wrong, you were 4 deadline trade involved.
Yeah.
You were involved in 4.
Yes, my dubious NHL record. It was 4 trade deadline day trades.
And you knew all of them. You knew before they were going to happen.
Well, kind of. And when I get traded from Edmonton to LA, I wouldn't sign a new contract because I was getting paid so well on an American contract playing on Edmonton's farm team. I was making more than guys in the NHL were. And they'd ask me every day. They'd have a new contract offer almost every single day. Nope, not good enough. It's got that Canadian minor league in there. Not going to happen. I'll go play in the coast. I can make more money there every day. And then at the deadline, I had all my bags packed. Ronnie Lowe calls me. He goes, Mazer, I hate to tell you, you got traded. I put my hand over the phone and I'm cheering it. And I go, I acted sad because I
what
loved
an
Ronnie.
astute businessman you were back then.
I loved Ronnie, but I got traded to LA, and I knew I was going to get traded back to Rick Dudley and John Tortorella. And so I told all my roommates, I think we had 4 guys living in this horrible house in Cape Breton.
Oh, gosh.
And I just told them LA, and they were so pissed off. And once again, I was out of the house in an hour. All my bags were packed, and I played in the game that night. I had a limo pick me up at the airport in Boston, played in the game, had a phenomenal game, got halfway through warm-up, got a new jersey, new teammates, and I introduced myself, or, you do that introduction where you go around the room. I did that after warm-up, not before warm-up. And, I'd kicked ass on about 4 or 5 of the guys in that team, and they weren't too happy to have me as a teammate, I don't think. But after the game, they were pretty happy to have me as a teammate that night because we tore it up the rest of the way.
Wow. Listen, I could be here all day talking to you, but we got games, right?
Yes.
We got games here. You've got one of those passionless games with the Washington Capitals. I'm sure they're getting ready. They should have a pretty good effort against the Flyers. Anything in particular you're looking for outside of the Capitals tonight?
Well, I just think I will finish on the Capitals and we'll talk about those other games. But with the Caps tonight, Philadelphia kicked their ass very easily this year and decimated. So the Caps need to be a lot better in these games to have some type of victory. Because I really think that the Philadelphia Flyers, to me, are the best team top to bottom. I'm going to go coaching staff all the way back. And goaltending could be a question to see where Hart's at. But I look at their defensive pairs, and I love what they've done with their forwards. Elaine Vigneault, Terry, and as the good guy assistant coach, Mike Yeo there. That's a lot of NHL coaching experience. And Vigneault's teams always play fast. He's got a lot of fast guys, a lot of size. And it's just a good-looking roster to me. And what I've seen them do this season, they've been really good. So the Caps have to play a lot better. But I look in the other series, that Canucks Wild series, that you look around, and that's probably going into this. That was one of my toughest series, I think, the handicap. When I looked at it, where those guys are at, Canucks have so many good young players, and they're skillful. They can play the game really fast, but they can make some defensive blunders. And I look at, they've got some solid veterans in Minnesota. So it's kind of that toss up there. I like Dean Evison as a coach, what he's done with the Wild. So to me, that's the toughest game to call. So to me, it's all about goaltending in that game. And it's whoever's goaltender wins them the game.
It does kind of, Vancouver mini kind of mirrors the Leafs and Columbus, where the Columbus Blue Jackets are all defense, and we know what Minnesota's defense means to them. But if that skill gets a chance on a few power plays and they gain the neutral zones with speed, many in Columbus are going to have their hands full.
Oh, absolutely. But, I look at Columbus and John Tortorella, a phenomenal person, phenomenal coach, and he's got his team wound up, and they've made mistakes last game. But they'll go in and they'll come out. They're so difficult to play against, and especially you don't have all your timing yet, and you have so many skillful players on the Toronto Maple Leafs that rely on skill and defense. They've still got a long ways to go to learn how to play the game without the puck. But Tortorella, if it's turnovers and pressure, you've got to stay out of the box. But they're in your face. They're frustrating to play against, especially if you like to move the puck a lot. The Columbus Blue Jackets can take your confidence away, and if they score early, it's lights out. I think tonight it'll be Columbus. If they score early, I think they can take out the Leafs tonight.
You quickly, because I know you got to get ready for an afternoon game here. But John Tortorella, you mentioned that you had you were involved with him early in your career. Was he as big of a lunatic back then as he is now with the media?
Well, he plays the media, in my opinion, and he's a fiery guy, and I hated this guy. I actually jumped on a bench one time when he was coaching against me in the coast and gave it to him. And and he had long Jerry curl hair, and he was mouthing me off from the bench during what was a bench clearing brawl. So he had lost his mind. So the fire has always been there. And so I jump on the bench. At the end of the season, that season, he comes running out looking for it. His team knocked my team out of the playoffs. He was always a good coach. And he comes up, where's May? Where's May? And I think he wants to fight now. We're an even footing. And, he's just a little guy. He's like this tall. And he comes out and he goes, what were you doing playing left wing? You need to play right wing if you're going to play in the NHL. So he's one of the first guys that, looked at me as an NHL player. 2 years later, he's my assistant coach. And I couldn't have had a more passionate guy around. And he actually used to protect Rick Dudley, who was kind of a villain to the players. Half of the guys hated him, and the other half, I just loved him because he was
the Scotty Bowman, Mike Keenan thing, right?
Yeah, but he was, Duds was a goofball, and Torch was always the same. A lot of fire, and just a great coach at every single level. And he keeps adapting to what's in front of him. He fights till the end. But I think people really have to think about it. He's played the reporters for fools over here. They win, he's in a good mood, and he only speaks about his players. They lose, he creates, he creates a situation, and it becomes all about he's a jerk. He doesn't have to badmouth his players or the game they played. He can go general, but he never points out or sells out his players. So I love that part about him. And I think it's a game. I go, oh, just wait for this one tonight. They lost. He's going to be a dick. And,
all right, Alan.
Yeah.
Listen, we got a ton of games here. I'm going to let you go because I know you got to get ready here. We're involved, of course. Our public traded company, i3 Interactive, has a betting site, sports betting site, blitzbet.eu. So we're going to finish this thing off by you handicapping the games, the qualifying games, the ones that matter here. So give me a favorite with the Canucks and Wild at 2:30 Eastern.
I'm going to go with the Canucks in this one. I just think the young skill.
All right. And then we got the muzzinless Leafs. Big loss. Physical defenseman for the Leafs will be out the rest of the series. Does that play a part in who you pick to win this game at 8 p.m.?
I'm gonna go long shot on this one with Columbus.
Wow.
I think just going after the
rebound
defense.
Game.
Yeah, rebound game.
All right. And then 10:30, does Calgary close out Winnipeg?
Yes.
All right. There you have it. Alan, I can't thank you enough for coming on the Real Kyper at Noon show. Co-hosting today because Doug McLean is really old and we got to pace that guy. I tucked him away with a blanket and a pillow. He'll be back tomorrow, but great job filling in, pal.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. And I know Doug's living down in Boca del Vista down in Florida now with Costanza's parents. So he's probably out in the golf course right now with his
sandals.
With his long putter. Yeah.
Sandals and black socks. That's Doug McLean's look. Hey, we're going to have you back. Okay. There's so many more stories I want to hear. I can't wait for your book to come out, pal.
I don't know if I'll ever do it.
Oh, no,
all my best stories are off the ice, and I don't want them getting out there. I think they're best told in a bar stool.
No.
We'll
it's good. There's a statute of limitations at what, 15, 20 years? You're good to go now with all of them.
Well, maybe you put it that way. I may have to do it. I've got a good lawyer as well.
We'll have you back on a number of occasions before we hand out a Stanley Cup. Okay, Alan?
All right. Take care, Nicky. Thanks for having me, bud.
Thanks for doing this, pal. Alan May, everybody. All right, we're back here live streaming. Yes, live streaming. Our thanks once again to Alan May, who got up early today to do that interview with me. And let us know. Let us know what you liked about it. Tell us your favorite story. Tell us if it went a little long. But hey, he is an ex-teammate. You ever get two NHL players together that are haven't seen each other in a while or talked to in a while? That's what happens. You start telling stories. Heck, you're lucky we didn't crack open a case of beer. We'd still be talking right now and probably taking you to puck drop of the Toronto Columbus at 8 p.m. All right, speaking of which, what team you like out of Columbus showing up? Game 1, Blue Jackets, or Game 2, Blue Jackets? Because what a role reversal we saw. Everything that could go right for the Columbus Blue Jackets in Game 1 did. They were flawless, but they were anything but in game 2. So if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, how do you react now? You are Jake Muzzenless. So who steps up? How about Travis Dermott? Dermott will go tonight with Hull. And I loved Hull's game in game 2. You want to talk about close to flawless? That was Hull and Muzzin. Now, the one thing that, unfortunately for Travis Dermott, he can't replace is the ability to go up against the big boys on Columbus shoulder to shoulder. And Muzzin is that guy. Now, Travis Dermott can skate a puck out. He can make a good first pass. But if Columbus starts getting heavy on the forecheck, that's where it's going to get a little dicey for him. The other thing that I like about Travis Dermott, he's got no contract next year. Talk about an opportunity now to step up with key minutes and show everybody that you could double or triple your salary. This is what Travis has got now in front of him. And I don't care whether or not you're a professional or you think that you should play well no matter what, if you're in your last year of your contract or if you're in the start of one of year number 6. This matters to guys. I can't tell you how many guys I've played with over my years that got obsessed with needing a new contract and watching comparables and wondering what they're going to do or what they're going to say. I don't know how Travis is going to react tonight, but I think that it would be a great motivator for him moving forward. On Monday, I also called out Sheldon Keefe to play Kyle Clifford a little bit more. Remember on Monday, I said 3 minutes. What the hell do you do with 3 minutes if you're this guy and you've been showcased as a guy that's won cups, that can run people over, grit, sandpaper, yada, yada, yada. Nothing in game 1. Well, Sheldon Keefe obviously listened to the Real Kyper at noon show because I saw Kyle Clifford go after Kukin like a dog on a bone. All right. And that's what it takes this time of year. Now, Kukin, we just found out, is out of the lineup. Actually, Tortorella is calling him a healthy scratch or a coach's decision. Now, don't tell me for 1 second that Kyle Clifford running you over had nothing to do with it. Either you're hurt or you're pissed off that you took that hit. But I expect more out of that of Kyle Clifford, and I expect Sheldon Keefe to now go after the likes of Jones or Zach Werenski. Those are the next. And if you're Jones or Werenski, you got to think you're looking for him now. And this is where Sheldon Keefe's got to find key minutes for him. Get him on the ice when those guys are on the ice. Okay? Mihailov, talented player. He ain't running anybody over. He's not scaring anybody. He's not hurrying Jones or Werenski to make a first pass faster than they want to. Clifford can do that. I see even more minutes coming his way, especially if the Leafs are able to get off to another good start. All right, let's move it out west a little bit. Let's go to an elimination game. Calgary Flames can eliminate the Winnipeg Jets tonight. And that would be their first opportunity to do this since 2015. In fact, that's the only time that they had a chance to end a team, other than then you have to go back to 2006 against Anaheim. So for me, it's all about the reaction from Calgary to finish this off. We're well documented on the key injuries to Winnipeg. They didn't take advantage of that when they let Winnipeg win their first game. This is another opportunity to put them away. You got to take advantage. And even if miraculously Scheifele and Laine showed up, you know they're playing at 40 or 50%. You still should be in a position to bury these guys. Okay? And I will say this for Calgary. Even if they lose tonight and finish off Winnipeg in game 5, I'll still question them in this game on why they couldn't have closed it. So they've got an amazing opportunity here. I still want to see more out of Monahan and Gaudreau. I'm sorry, you're not the number one line. Backlund's the number one line. Matthew Tkachuk is the number one winger there. Those guys drive the bus. And while it looked good offensively for Monahan and Gaudreau, 5 out of 7 points on the power play. I need more 5-on-5, boys. I really do. And guess what? When you start getting into game 4 and game 5 or the next round, all those power plays opportunities, they start to disappear. Okay? So you better get your game going 5-on-5 and start competing like your number one line. All right? And let's go out to Minnesota and Vancouver. That's another one at 1-1. Another role reversal. Now all of a sudden we saw the Vancouver Canucks that I thought could be my sleeper pick to go deep. What was the big difference? They had the puck. Start there. We talked about Draisaitl losing a key face-off to Jonathan Toews on the game-winning goal. How about Vancouver's face-offs? Okay, over 70% for Horvat. Jay Beagle in his own zone, over 70%. You got the puck. You got a greater chance of winning. End of story. It's not brain surgery here, folks. Okay, and the other thing as well, Markstrom saw the puck. Okay, Edler didn't feel the need to play goalie on Spurgeon's goal 2 games ago. Okay, that got cleaned up as well. So the level of compete is there. As far as now, what am I hearing? That Fiala scored 2 meaningless goals. I'm going to tell you something. Okay, that was not good on Vancouver to give up those late goals. For no other reason is that you don't ever want anybody to feel like they can score on any given shift. Fiala has that, and he's had it for a month and a half before we went into this pandemic. Okay, Fiala's dangerous, and he's a lot more dangerous because he gave up 2 goals at the end of the game. And when a player in the playoffs starts feeling that when he shoots the puck, it's going in, that's very dangerous. Okay, I lived that when I was with the Washington Capitals and my good pal Alan May. We saw it. John Druce, 14 goals in 17 games. Okay, Fiala's feeling that type of love right now, and he's felt it for about a month before the season ran out. So that is going to have to be addressed by the Vancouver Canucks. All right, folks, what'd you think? I'm sorry if it went a little long with Alan May, but certainly if you know Alan May like I know him, and sometimes it's a little tough to get him to wind it down because that guy knows only one way, 1,000 miles an hour. But we thank Alan May for joining us, and we also thank the Carolina Hurricanes for cutting us some slack on the 12 noon games. By eliminating the New York Rangers, I got my time slot back at noon. So as long as that happens, you know when to find me, at noon Eastern time, of course. But now we could be looking at as many as 6 elimination games on Friday. Doug MacLean will be back. I heard his walk in the park went great. He's feeling energized. We're going to talk a lot about what we see tonight out of the key games. So for Nick Kypreos here at Real Kyper at noon, thanks for joining us. Thanks for subscribing. And please tell your friends and smash the like button. Tell me what you're thinking. Those comments, Karate Canada, I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think of the show. And we're going to be back tomorrow with Doug MacLean. Have a great day and a great night.